I'm Jeff Matlow. Welcome to the best leadership podcast ever. Welcome to the pod. It's great to be talking with you again. Not that you're talking back to me, or maybe you are. I just can't hear you. But let's pretend we're talking with each other and I'm not talking at you, because it makes me feel a little better. Like, we respect each other. We're having a conversation. That's what life and leadership is about, isn't it? And that's why this is the most fun way to learn life's leadership lessons, right here on the Best Leadership Podcast Ever. My name's Jeff Matlow. I'll be your host on this journey. I'm a 3-time entrepreneur, an author, a keynote speaker, and I transform leaders and their teams into the most productive people in the company. So if you are ready to catapult your career and elevate your productivity and your team's productivity, reach out to me, leadership@bytitleonly.com. Today, I want to tell you a story about an escape artist. His name is Ken Allen, and this was in the 1980s. See, Ken Allen was a master escape artist. When he was put in a cage, any cage, he could always get out. But nobody could figure out how he did it. He was that good. If somebody were watching him, he wouldn't escape the cage. He didn't want anybody to learn his tricks. It was only when Ken Allen was left alone that he would magically make the escape. Oh, wait, I forgot to mention something important. Ken Allen was an orangutan in the San Diego Zoo. Ken wasn't an aggressive orangutan. He never tried to run away. He just escaped from his cage and then casually walk around the zoo visiting other animals. Nothing got destroyed, no one was hurt, and the zookeepers were baffled. They brought in animal behavior experts. They consulted military security, and they even used undercover zookeepers disguised as tourists, all in the hope of catching Ken in the act. Nothing worked. And one time, this well-meaning zookeeper tried to calmly coax Ken back into his cage. So she talked to him with a soft, soothing voice, as somebody might use when helping another solve a problem. But Ken didn't have a problem that needed solving. And she tried luring Ken with bananas as if Ken were scared and needed comforting. But Ken wasn't scared and he didn't need comfort. So what was the problem? Well, the answer to that is the reason why you're having trouble communicating with those coworkers of yours, and you know the ones I'm referring to. As a leadership coach, I'm brought into companies to help solve leadership problems across the spectrum of leadership problems. More times than not, it relates to one or two people who just don't seem to be working well with others. My clients tend to refer to me as their leadership therapist. And when communication and teamwork don't seem to work, the leaders call me to quickly solve their problems. The things I hear the most are, I don't know what to do anymore. Or, it's like we're speaking two different languages. And they're right when they say that. Kinda, but not really. But kinda. You see, the reason that you're having communication problems with your coworkers is because you're having the wrong conversation at the wrong time. Let me explain. Effective communication isn't just about speaking whatever's on your mind. And, sorry to all the guys listening, it isn't always about solving people's problems. Effective communication is dependent on a lot of things like mood, emotion, and intent. But most importantly, it's dependent on understanding what type of communication is happening. And it turns out there are only 3 types of communication: practical conversations, emotional conversations, and social conversations. Practical conversations are ones where somebody's trying to get help or find an answer to something. Emotional conversations are ones where somebody's trying to get emotional support or empathy. And social conversations are ones where somebody wants to feel heard and acknowledged. All they want to do is feel heard and acknowledged. Every conversation you have is going to fit in one of those 3 buckets: practical, emotional, or social. And the secret to effective communication is to ensure that both parties are having the same type of conversation. You see, because communication clashes when two people are having two different types of conversation at the same time. And this is called the matching principle of communication. And this is why you get frustrated when talking with some people. Effective communication requires both parties to be on the same page, having the same conversation at the same time in the same tone. That is what fosters trust. Ken Allen, our friendly orangutan escapist, he didn't want a practical conversation. He wasn't asking for banana-based problem solving. He wanted a social one. He wanted a chance to connect, to roam, and be acknowledged for the curious genius that he actually was. But the zookeepers didn't get that, so they kept trying to fix a problem he wasn't having. And assuming you don't work in a zoo, let me bring this to a common business example I see all the time, which is the customer support process. Let's say you're frustrated with a service you received. I'm not saying it's from Comcast, but I'm not saying it's not. So you call the company because you're angry, and all you really want to do is vent your frustrations on someone and have them hear you, acknowledge you, and apologize for the experience. You're going to get even angrier if that's not the conversation you're getting in return. So when the customer support person tries to fix the issue by telling you how you're wrong, it's going to send you into a tizzy to end all tizzies. So the best customer support people, they know how to quickly determine the type of conversation being had and adjust the way they say things, adjust their response in order to match that conversation. Similarly, the best leaders can quickly sense the type of conversation they're having with one of their colleagues or subordinates, and they can make adjustments on the fly. So how good are you at recognizing the types of conversations that are happening? Because your success as a leader relies on you being good at it. Last week, I got a call from one of my coaching clients, and she was having trouble with one of her subordinates. She said to me, "He pretends to know everything and battles me when I contradict him. Every conversation seems like an argument. It's so frustrating." I quickly realized that the leader wasn't matching the type of conversation her subordinate was trying to have. It wasn't really the employee's fault. You see, because the employee wanted to have a social conversation. He just wanted to feel heard and acknowledged. But his boss, my client, always turned it into a practical conversation. She was always trying to give a solution to a problem that didn't even really exist. In the end, the subordinate never felt acknowledged. And that, by the way, is the number one reason why people quit their job. Just like our orangutan friend Ken, the employee wasn't arguing or ignoring her to be difficult. He just wanted someone to listen to him. In the end, I instructed her to have an open conversation with her subordinate about communication and to acknowledge his point of view. She did that, and it made all the difference. Her subordinate felt heard, and they haven't had a meaningful issue since then. Situation resolved. Check. Ken Allen wasn't trying to cause trouble. He didn't want to be coaxed, bribed. He didn't want to be fixed. He just wanted to be seen. He wanted to go on a stroll and check in on his friends. The problem is that nobody ever thought to ask, what kind of conversation is Ken trying to have? Sure, maybe it's because he's a primate. But when it comes down to it, aren't we all? But the same is true for your coworkers, your employees, your clients, your boss, and heck, probably even your partner and your kids. The matching principle is simple. Match the conversation, match the tone, match the intent, and then you'll have a healthy, productive conversation. And by the way, if you don't know what type of conversation the other person is trying to have, ask them. Do they want a solution, some empathy, or just to be acknowledged? Once you start having the same conversation at the same time, you're going to be amazed how the stress will magically disappear. Kind of like Ken Allen in his cage. If you want help improving conversations with your team, reach out to me, leadership@bytitleonly.com. Also, if you like this episode, you're going to love my newsletter. Go to thebestleadershipnewsletter.com. You'll find it there. I appreciate you showing up every week. Always good to talk with you. And we'll talk to you next time. Have a great one. Bye.